Hey, good evening. Thank you for joining us on the Thursday Night Hockey Show. I'm Dave Valente. Sorry about missing last week. I had to go into DC, and those days take a lot out of me. So I couldn't do the show last week, but thanks for joining us this week. A lot to get to in the world of hockey. So talk about Alex Ovechkin hitting 800 goals and the week of last 2 weeks of Tage Thompson and some injury news and our hot and not teams of the week and our player of the week in each division. So let's get rolling with this. Before we do, I do want to have a little advertisement for my YouTube page.
Whether you are getting the best in news, politics, and pop culture each week with the Political Deep Dive, or you're enjoying the latest news from the world of hockey on the Thursday Night Hockey Show, we thank you for watching. But you may wonder how you can help grow the show. Head on over to youtube.com/papaduke. Click subscribe to see our content show up on your YouTube feed. Click on the thumbs up button on the video to let us know that you like our content. Click that bell icon to get notified when new content drops or we're live. Each of those things lets YouTube know to put this content in front of more people. The more people we get, the more people engage and improve our content. As always, we thank you for being a loyal viewer to our shows. These shows would be nothing without you.
Yeah, so drop on over to youtube.com/papaduke to uh, join and subscribe and all that fun stuff. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything, just gets you notified when we go live for our new shows. I'm also on TikTok. Hey to everybody on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, press that screen and throw some likes my way. It just kind of boosts the algorithm and gets people watching the show. Um, so tonight, let's take a look at the out of town scoreboard because everything's out of town for me. So, but tonight, 7 o'clock starts. We've got a quite a few games starting at 7 o'clock. The Ducks are in Montreal to take on the Canadians. The Blue Jackets are in Tampa to take on the Lightning. The Capitals, with Alex Ovechkin looking to tie Gordie Howe, will be taking on the Stars. The Capitals are on fire right now. I think they've won 5 in a row. The Bruins will be hosting the Kings. The Devils, who are suddenly, I will say, slumping, are taking on the Philadelphia Flyers. Devils are still 21-6-2, not really slumping per se, but based off their early season performance, it is a little bit of a slump for them. The Panthers will be hosting the Penguins. The Penguins will be going for 7 wins in a row tonight. The Seattle Kraken are in Carolina to take on the Hurricanes. They're down in Raleigh. Uh, at MSG, the Maple Leafs, the very hot Maple Leafs, haven't lost in 15. Uh, we're actually have points in 15 straight games. Um, we'll be taking on the Rangers. The This one's at 8 o'clock. The first 8 o'clock game here. Jets will be taking on the Predators in Winnipeg. At 8:30, the Blackhawks will be hosting the Golden Knights. My Sabres, as you can see, I got my white go ahead jersey on tonight. The Sabres will be in Colorado taking on the Avalanche. The walking wounded of the NHL right now, the Colorado Avalanche. And then the final game of the night at 9 o'clock is St. Louis in Edmonton to take on the Oilers. So we've got a full night of hockey tonight, although not quite going as late as it could be if there were games on the West Coast. Looks like most of the teams are out east, although some teams are starting to shift out West Coast. I know the Sabres will be playing a couple games out in Arizona this week and in Vegas as well. So before returning home, but good night of hockey coming ahead. Congratulations to Alexander Ovechkin for hitting number 800, and he did it in fine style the other night. by netting a hat trick against the Chicago Blackhawks. Yeah, we know it's the Blackhawks, but um, to be able to do that at that, just to be able to rock that on a hat trick is a great feat for Alexander Ovechkin. Not really surprising. Yesterday, the NHL put out a video of all 800 Alex Ovechkin goals, and unsurprisingly, they were at least the first half of that video were a lot of goals against the Thrashers. So I'm not surprised that the Alex Ovechkin's gotten 800, having played a lot of his years in a division with the Atlanta Thrashers. But kind of sad watching that because I lived in Atlanta for most of the time that the Thrashers were around, and um, still hate that they had to go away. But congratulations to Alex Ovechkin. I'm looking forward to seeing him catch Gordie Howe and then really just have Wayne Gretzky to chase down. I do think that he's going to eventually get it, barring injuries. I mean, of course, that's always something that you got to focus on is a guy getting to his age, although he's not really that old. I mean, their guys have been skating for a lot longer. I mean, I think of Chris Chelios' career. He was, mid-40s by the time he hung it up. Gordie Howe was 50 years old by the time he hung it up. Um, so definitely Alex Ovechkin can get to 895, I think would be the record. And if he continues to produce at the pace he has, there's a realistic chance he plays another 5 years and gets to 1,000 goals. Um, I don't know. I think it depends on how hard it is for him to get to 895 to pass Gretzky. But if he does it in a couple of years, I would not be surprised for him to see him stick around and go for 1,000. Um, that's just the Russian machine never breaks. Let's see, 3 stars of the week this week, in the NHL. We've got Charlie Lindgren of the Washington Capitals. We mentioned that the Washington is very hot right now, and he's a big reason for it, which is interesting because, and if you look at all of the top goaltenders of the NHL this season, Washington's had their hands on most of them. I mean, Vitek Vanacek for the Devils has been hot. Ilya Samsonov for the Toronto Maple Leafs has been just roasting. Uh, Thankfully for the Capitals, they've got a guy that's doing that right now, and that's Charlie Lindgren. Although they did put a lot of money down on Darcy Kemper after he won the Stanley Cup. So uh, Lindgren had a great week, 4-0, 1.50 goals against average. Second star of the week, and his second week in a row being the second star is Tage Thompson, Buffalo. 5 goals, all of those in one game. Uh, he set a Sabres record and tied an NHL record. Um, I'm sorry, he tied a Buffalo and an NHL record by getting 4 goals in the first period of a game against Columbus. He had 5 goals total in that game. Two added 2 assists over the week for 7 points. That was tops in the NHL, tied by William Nylander, who is the third star for Toronto. He had 3 goals, 4 assists for 7 points for the Maple Leafs, who are red hot right now. So yeah, 7 points for both Thompson and Nylander, and Thompson gets the second star based on the fact that most of his points were goals this week. Um, Tage Thompson is amazing. Um, that game against Columbus was, he scored almost every which way but loose. I mean, he dangled, he unleashed a slapper on the power play. He tried another slapper. It was more of a slower slapper, if you could say that. It was 76 miles an hour, but when he's shooting 100 miles an hour on his slappers on the point at during the power play, um, that seems like it would be a stoppable shot. But he's getting it in there. His wrister is amazing. He gets so much torque on his stick when he's shooting the puck. So it's great to see Buffalo hitting on Tage Thompson, especially him being part of that Brian O'Reilly trade that was so roasted when it happened. Um, you know, it's just I'm glad to see Tage Thompson coming into his own, It's kind of a testament to, sometimes, especially these tall, lanky players, takes a little bit longer for them. It's kind of like how they used to say with defensemen. Defensemen took a little longer to develop, especially the taller, bigger type. Took a little bit longer to develop. I think that's with Tage Thompson. You're young, you're growing, especially that tall, you're growing into a body and adjusting to that. And he's hitting a stride and legitimately can become a superstar in this league just because he's got such a wingspan that nobody can really stop him. Um, but yeah, I'm very happy to see what's going on with Tage Thompson. Barry Trotz, former Capitals, Predators, and Islanders head coach, was interviewed recently. He is the hottest coaching commodity out there right now. Of course, he was for the dumbest reason. The Islanders had a bad season last year. I won't sugarcoat that at all. But the problem is Barry Trotz was I don't know, say scapegoated for the failures of Lou Lamoriello, the GM of the Islanders, because um, you know Barry Trotz had the Islanders 2 straight seasons with a game away from going to the Stanley Cup Finals. It was just because they ran into the Tampa Bay Lightning that they couldn't. Um, but he's been out there. He was introduced on the Chirp podcast. He said he's been contacted by a few teams to come back to coaching. He says there are some things that he needs to take care of personally, and that if he doesn't do that now, take care of it, it'll be hard for him to come back to coaching. I think I think that's probably true, but I also think that he's waiting for a good team that might be underperforming at this point to panic fire their coach. Let's say the Lisa got off to a just a horrible start, and they panic fire the Sheldon Keefe. I could see Trotz going, you know what, that's a good situation because it's a good team already there. I just instill a defensive system in there, and with their firepower, the Leafs could go far in the playoffs. If Pittsburgh did the same thing, or if the Rangers, there was for a time, there was talk about, is Gallant in trouble? And that's the sad thing. Weird thing about Gallant is that Gallant generally doesn't have a long shelf life with the teams he's coached. Even though he gets a lot out of those teams, it seems like they fire him fairly quickly. So, would the Rangers be a good fit for Barry Trotz? But yeah, I think Trotz holds on until a really good team. I don't think he wants to go back and say take a team that's rebuilding or starting from scratch like a when he took over the Predators and build them back up into a playoff contender. I think he really wants just a team that's ready to win now. So, and I don't blame him. He's earned that. Let's see. Let's do our injury report. Every week we tend to have lots to report. This one isn't so much a physical injury, but Tony D'Angelo has been placed on the non-roster status due to personal reasons. He's had a troubled past as a NHL player. Was kicked off the Rangers, and subsequently signed in Carolina due to altercation with a teammate in the locker room. Um, people complained about his Twitter feed and all that stuff. I just hope that if it is a personal issue for that's dealing with him, maybe it's a family member, I don't know, but if it's dealing with him, I hope he gets the help that he needs. He's a good hockey player. He's a bit of a knucklehead, um, you know, but I don't wish it ill on anybody just because they're a bit of a knucklehead, except for maybe Brad Marchand, but that's another story. Um, Speaking of injured players, Thatcher Demko, he was injured. He's been out. He's going to be out for 6 weeks. Slotted return for around the first or second week of January. It'll be interesting to see who is in nets for Vancouver once Demko returns. Demko is the incumbent starter, but he got off to a horrible start this year. He's was 3-10-2 before he was injured early December. Um, his backup um, Spencer Barton played really well. His numbers, like Thatcher Demko was 310 and 2. He had a 3.93 goals against average and an 883. Yeah, 883 save percentage. Spencer Martin, much better record. He's 9-3-1 on the season. The goals against average is about a half a goal better, so 3.40. The save percentage is not vastly different. It's 8.894 save percentage. So it'll be interesting to see who Bruce Boudreau goes with once uh, uh, Thatcher Demko comes back into the nets for Vancouver. Other This is actually good news. The Pittsburgh defenseman Chris Letang returned to the ice this week after he suffered a stroke. This is the second stroke of his career. He's a great player. Always seemed to score against my Sabres. Came back against my Sabres, did not score in this game, but he was out for 12 days following a stroke. Um, they caught it early. He has a known medical condition, or known heart condition. Was not feeling well. Sought medical treatment from the team physician. They said go get to the hospital. He got at the hospital, learned he had a stroke, and they got it treated early. Has no lasting symptoms or anything like that. Um, but he takes 12 days, comes back, and he leads the team in ice time. 22 14 of ice time in a 3-1 win against Buffalo on Saturday. Uh, you know, Guys with heart conditions, I always worry. I think of the Rich Peverly. I can't remember the guy that collapsed on the bench in Detroit. Um, those types of situations. You don't want it to have a tragedy. This is a game. Chris Letang has got three Stanley Cup rings. I know he's a competitive guy and wants to win more. I mean, hell, he just signed a 6-year contract and he's like in mid-30s. So, um, he wants to play for a while longer. I just don't know that eventually whatever's causing the stroke issue has to be addressed, or we could have a bad incident on the ice. So let's see. Bad injury news. Tim Stützle for the Ottawa Senators is out at least a week. He was injured a few days ago with a shoulder injury. So 7 to 10 days is what the coaching staff is saying. They say he's lucky. Could have been much worse. Um, Ottawa is has struggled for the most part this season. They're starting to put it together. They won 3 in a row. Um, but nowhere near what people thought of when they were coming out of the gate this season. Toronto forward Nick Robertson is out 6 to 8 weeks with a shoulder injury. He was injured after tangling with Matt Roy of the Kings on last Thursday. He tumbled down and slid into the boards and slammed his shoulder in there, so he's out 6 to 8 weeks. Um, and finally, the biggest news for the injuries that happened since our last show. Nathan McKinnon is out for 4 weeks, probably 3 weeks now. Apologies there. Um, he joins a formidable lineup that has been on the IR for the Avalanche this year. I think they just got back a couple of players. But yeah, there guys like Evan Rodriguez, Gabe Landeskog are out long term. Um, but Colorado's treading water, and I think that's all they need to do if they can start getting these guys back towards the back half of the season and catch fire. Although this is the thing that we were thinking with Vegas last year is eventually these guys are going to start coming back and they're going to catch fire, and that never happens. So, but Colorado's kind of keeping in that lower end of the playoff spectrum at this point. I really do think that their experience is going to carry them in the back half of the season. Let's see. Let's go to suspension news. Bad boys. What you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Jeff Skinner is on game 3 tonight is game 3 of a 3-game suspension, for a cross check to the head of Jake Gensel, the Pittsburgh Penguins. I have no problem either with the cross check, uh, or the suspension that he got suspended. My problem is with the number of games, and, it's not so much if it was equitable to some of the other suspensions we've seen this year, I would be okay with it. But, we had the incident early in the season with the Yevgeny Kuznetsov of the Capitals where he took a baseball swing and clipped or not even clipped, I mean, he took a baseball swing at the head of Kyle Burrows, a defenseman for the Vancouver Canucks, caught him flush on the head. He got 1 game. That was a actual baseball swing at a player's head. And then this week, Pierre Engvall of the Maple Leafs does the same thing, a stick swing to the back of the head of Sean Dursey of the Kings. Caught the back of his helmet and his neck. He only got 1 game, and that just I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, uh, you know, cross check, yes, cross check. I wouldn't have a problem with it being 3 games if you'd given 3 games to Kuznetsov and Engvall. Um, uh, Jeff, 'cause somebody will say that Jeff Skinner had an incident prior in his NHL career. It was 10 years ago, and the Department of Player Safety can't consider a suspension that is over 18 months in doling out discipline. So, um, his prior suspension was like 10 years ago. So, I just don't get why his was 3, um, and Engvall and Kuznetsov only got 1 game for their infractions. So, not sure what to say there. Another 3-game suspension though for Jamie Alexiak of the Kraken. He got 3 games for a check to the head of Alexander Alexiev of the Capitals. So he'll be sitting out 3 games, and that's for the injuries. Let's go on to our teams of the week. All right, teams of the week. Let us go to the Metro Division. First division we'll talk about. Our team of the week in the Metro Division is the Pittsburgh Penguins. They've won 6 in a row. And this league this year has been such a league of streaks. It's been really interesting to watch. You see teams like Toronto going a long streak. We'll talk about them in a minute. We see long losing streaks. Buffalo had the 8-game losing streak. Um, New Jersey went on a ridiculous run at the beginning of the season. So, it's but we're seeing that so much more now. Like a team will just get hot and just roll for a while. Hopefully my Sabres do that for a while. Be nice. Um, but yeah, right now Pittsburgh is rolling. But remember, early in the season, Pittsburgh lost 8 in a row. So, it's just teams are going on streaks. That finding consistent play, I think, is going to be a big thing. But yeah, 6 in a row, 8-1-1 in the last 10. Good job on Pittsburgh. Our coldest team in the week in the Metro Division. I say this almost half joking because New Jersey has been so hot this year, but they're winless in the last 3. Really, most of the division in the Metro has been rolling along at least 500 hockey, um, and but New Jersey's winless in 3. They've lost 5 of their last 10, although they did get points in a couple of them. Um, But you can't complain if you're a Devils fan. The Devils are still 6 points up on the rest of the Metro Division, so there's nothing really to worry about for New Jersey at this point. Um, if they get to a Buffalo level 18 games in a row, then maybe you start hitting the panic button. But they've created enough of a buffer for themselves not to worry about it too much. Let's see. Our player of the week in the Metro Division is the man, the myth, the legend, the oven chicken, Alexander Ovechkin. He is cooking 800 hat trick to seal that 800 goals. Um, and if you get a chance to watch that video that NHL put out about his 800 goals. All 800 goals. I think it's like 15 minutes long. Great video. Let's move to the Atlantic Division. The team of the week in the Atlantic Division, supplanting Boston because Boston's been rolling as well. But Toronto, a 15 game point streak, 12 wins, zero losses, and three overtime losses. So the extra loser point for those games. Not only that, but they've got Marner, Matthews, Bunting, and we even featured in the team uh, 3 stars of the week. William Nylander with 7 points in the last week. But all these guys are rolling on long streaks, um, and we'll get to one of those streaks in a moment. Coldest team in the Atlantic Division. They're nowhere really. Just like the Metro Division. Yeah, no one's really suffering too bad right now. Most teams are rolling around 500 or above. Um, Playing teams out of their division, so that's how you're getting that. I will still say that Florida's disappointing. They should be in a playoff spot, solidly in a playoff spot with their roster. They are not in a spot at this point, so they need to get their act together. Although, as long as my Sabers can stay in contact with the playoff group, I will be okay with that. Um, and teams can continue to beat each other up until my Sabers can figure out the defense. We'll get into that in a little bit. Player of the week in the Atlantic Division is Mitch Marner, second week in a row. And, yeah, Tage Thompson's been the second star of the NHL the last 2 weeks. Mitch Marner is on a run right now. 23 straight games he's scored in, gotten at least an assist in, 11 goals, 21 assists, 32 points in that 23 games point streak. Um, Interestingly enough, only puts him like 10th in the league in scoring this year. But it's consistency for the Maple Leafs, and that's helped feed Austin Matthews, and Michael Bunting. That first line is just rolling right now. So, um, Mitch Marner is the straw that stirs the drink right now for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they're going to be a tough out if they continue rolling this way. Although they are starting to pile up some injuries, so be interesting to see if they can keep this rolling. Um, but the thing is with Toronto, they're not really catching Boston because Boston still is rolling in that division. Team of the week in the Central Division, Minnesota. So the Central Division is really just it's mayonnaise. Like to me, the Central Division is just mayonnaise. There's nothing really standing out in the whole division. Um, Minnesota has won 3 in a row. They're 7-3 in the last 10. Yeah, they're third in the division at this point. Nobody's really just kind of taking the division by the horn, which has allowed Colorado, with all the injuries they've had, to kind of stick around in the conversation. Um, but let's see, the coldest team in the division we've got is Chicago. Again, they're in free fall, 1-8, 1-8-1 in their last 10. They gave up the hat trick. That was like their highlight of the season is giving up the hat trick to Alexander Ovechkin to get to 800 goals. Um, you know, uh, Relish the moment. Props to the Chicago fans for throwing hats on the ice and giving Alexander Ovechkin a standing ovation, even chanting his name. That was you don't see that, especially in Chicago. That's class, and I appreciate when fans do right by a player when they do something extraordinary. My player of the week in the Central Division. This is kind of a quiet one because I really didn't even realize it until I was looking at the stats. But Josh Morrissey, the Winnipeg Jets defenseman, he's on a 6 game point streak, which isn't mind blowing. But he's now third amongst defensemen in scoring with 32 points. Um, you know, if you gave me a list of defensemen to say, who's going to be in the tops in the league in scoring, um, I wouldn't have put Josh Morrissey above like a Roman Yossi or Victor Hedman or he's not ahead of Darlene and Carlson, but there's a slew of names I would have picked. I would have been hard pressed to pick Morrissey at all. I never really thought of him as an offensive defenseman or offensive threat, but he's uh, he's helping Winnipeg to maintain that second position there in the Central Division behind Dallas. So good on him. Let's move out to the Pacific Division. The team of the week in the Pacific Division. There's no one really hot. Um, this is kind of like Mayonnaise Junior, maybe Ranch. I don't know. But we'll give congrats to Vancouver for reaching NHL 500. They had such a horrible start to the season. Uh, I think it was 6 or 7 games before they got a win, and fans were booing. There's buzzards circling the Boost Boudreaux, and they've righted the ship. I mean, they still a ways to go for the Vancouver Canucks to get back in that playoff conversation, but they're at least kind of in that playoff conversation now, and reaching NHL 500 in a division that you know Vegas has taken off to an extent. The not only Vegas but Seattle's taken off. Although they've come back down a little bit from their really hot run that they had a couple weeks ago. Um, but they can they can stay in this conversation and perhaps steal a playoff spot, third or fourth. Um, Especially with teams like Calgary stumbling right now. In fact, Calgary is my cold team of the week in the division. They're 0-1-3 in their last four, and they're sliding right now. So um, if Vancouver can continue winning, and like I said, there's going to be a conversation once Thatcher Demko is healthy as to who stays in nets for the Vancouver Canucks. Does it stay Spencer Martin, or do you bring back Thatcher Demko? Is it is Spencer Martin the reason why you're winning, or is it that your defense is playing better and that Thatcher Demko will continue, come back and play his normal kind of in the Vezina conversation self? Well, that remains to be seen. So, um, I ought to just name this the Connor McDavid Award. The Player of the Week in the Pacific Division is Connor McDavid, of course. He it's every week this season, I think. 10 game point streak. Oh, the first week I did have God, somebody from the Kings. But the everything every other week this season, so it's been Connor McDavid. He's got a 10 game point streak, 10 goals, 14 assists. I think he's on his back on the 2 point per game pace, which is amazing. Stuff we haven't seen since the early 90s. Um, so yeah, I'll just name this the Connor McDavid of the week for the Pacific Division because it's really just his award right now, his to lose. All right, let's go to the Sabres beat. So of course I'm a big Sabres fan. I got my white goat head. Finally came from China because I don't pay full price for that stuff. Not until the Sabres get in the playoffs again. Will I pay a full price for a jersey? Um, question: who is the highest scoring team in the NHL? Said any other team both sides, the Buffalo Sabres, you are wrong. The Sabres are scoring in bunches. Um, led by Tage Thompson. I permanently have Fishing in the Dark by the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band stuck in my head because he scores so often and that's his goal song. And by the way, every NHL team should scrap that goal song that they have and just let their players pick a goal song. It's kind of like, walk up music for a batter in a baseball game. I like the individuality of it. I like players showing their flair. Like Victor Olofsson has "Man After Midnight" by ABBA. Swedish guy, you can understand that. Um, I think Rasmus Dahlin has another ABBA song. So I mean, it's a uh, Jeff Skinner has "I Want to Dance with Somebody Who Loves Me." Jeff Skinner's got a wicked sense of humor. So, um, but we're hearing the goal songs this year, just a ton of them. Buffalo right now has 115 goals um, in under 30 games, and that's great. Problem with Buffalo is that they've also given up in the division the highest number of goals. They're at 103 goals given up. Um, and so, it's great that they're scoring a ton of goals. If they can just fix the defensive end, um, they're going to take off. Uh, you know, Boston's just behind them in scoring in the league, but they've also only given up like 60 goals, 62 goals or something like that. No, 65 goals. So, uh, you know, Boston is, in the stratosphere. Buffalo is in last place in the division. Um, it shouldn't be. If you have a plus 12 goal differential, you should be much higher than you are. They're losing a lot of close games, but they're all when they win, they blow the doors off a team. They blew the doors off of LA, scoring 6 goals in the third period the other night. They blew the doors off of Columbus, 9-4. Um, they score in bunches, but they'll lose a 2-1 game or a 3-1 game like they did against Pittsburgh the other night. Um, so, but if they can fix some of their defensive issues and maybe give up a half a goal a game less than they have been, I think the Sabres can make a push. I'm still not convinced that they're a playoff team, but if they just get to the dance, just get eighth position, that's all I'm asking for. Just let me see a playoff hockey game before I die. Um, that's all I ask. But it's not bad though. Even though they're last in the Atlantic Division right now, they are only 4 points behind the uh, fourth place in the division right now. Although fourth place is not a playoff position for the Atlantic Division because teams have been beating each other up in the division, um, and the Metro has done a little bit better, and their teams are getting hot now. Those the Rangers and Islanders and those guys are getting hotter. Fourth place in the Atlantic Division right now is not a playoff position, so whoever wants to get in the playoffs in that fourth position is going to have to pick up the pace. So who out of that group of Detroit, Montreal, Florida, um, Ottawa, even Ottawa now is in the conversation with their 3 wins in a row. Um, who who wants it at this point, and who's going to pick up the pace to get that fourth position into a playoff position in the Eastern Conference? So that's it for this week. I do have next week we will have a show on Thursday before Christmas. We're going to be talking about the World Junior Hockey Championships. Those will be starting the day after Christmas. So we'll be taking a look at the rosters. I'll be focusing on the Sabres prospects um, in that tournament. Surprisingly, the Matt Savoy, the first round pick of the Buffalo Sabres, did not make Team Canada, even though he was this eighth overall pick. Yeah, I can't remember what number it was, but has had kind of a little slow start in the WHL, so he didn't make the roster. But there are some Sabres prospects, primarily in the European teams. So but yeah, next week we'll be taking a look at the World Junior Championship rosters, taking a look at the teams where they stand as we go into Christmas. We're getting close to the midway point of the season. Another 10 games, we'll start hitting that midway point for a lot of teams. So um, early on in the new year, we'll be getting to that midway point, really get a good idea of who's in, who's out. We might start seeing some trades from teams that are out of it. It used to be that the trade deadline was the big day and all these great trades that happened, and it was kind of like Christmas Day. I think teams are more poised to make those trades earlier in the season so that it gives teams time to mesh that player to make more impact on their team. So, um, yeah, I'm interested to see what moves we see as we go into January and maybe All-Star break we start seeing some movement. But yeah, we've got some games that just started, and we don't have any scores in any of the games. So, 1, 3, 7 games have started at 7 o'clock. They're anywhere from 2 to 1 minute into the game. So, go out there and watch some hockey tonight. Enjoy the night of hockey. I'm going to watch the Sabres here at 9 o'clock against Colorado, and we'll talk to everyone on next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Whether you are getting the best in news, politics, and pop culture each week with the Political Deep Dive, or you're enjoying the latest news from the world of hockey on the Thursday Night Hockey Show, we thank you for watching, but you may wonder how you can help grow the show. Head on over to youtube.com/Papaduke. Click subscribe to see our content show up on your YouTube feed. Click on the thumbs up button on the video to let us know that you like our content. Click that bell icon to get notified when new content drops or we're live. Each of those things lets YouTube know to put this content in front of more people. The more people we get, the more people engage and improve our content. As always, we thank you for being a loyal viewer to our shows. These shows would be nothing without you.